Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video I'm going to be going over a starter guide for Gold Mythic Brutus. This is going over what skills I think are worth upgrading, the sort of combat mods I would use on this character, and how to upgrade his weapon or what weapon to use in his hands otherwise. If you want to see a video of me actually previewing how all this guy's skills work, you can check out a video in the top right hand corner. This is just primarily about how I would set this character up for success in a team, and maybe even the potential characters I would use him with. But first we're going to move on to the skills and go over his passives to see which ones I think are worth upgrading, which ones should be the priority. So let's move across to the skills tab. So before we move on to his passives, we're going to check out his Adrenaline Rush and his signature move just to see what grade you want to get these two to get the best out of them. If we look at the Adrenaline Rush, you can see at Limit Break 2 he gets fully upgraded Adrenaline Rush, and I'd say it's pretty important here just because he is also going to have higher stats when it's fully upgraded at LB2 because his base stats can just go higher. But he is going to get nice upgrades here. The upgrade where he gets 10% AP per Outlander does include Brutus himself, and generally speaking Brutus teamed up with the Scotsman is generally the way to go. So he's always going to get 20% AP back, for actually doing his Adrenaline Rush, which is pretty decent if you've got those two in a team as a minimum. And if we look at the signature move, we can see that LB3 it goes to -1 starting cooldown, and that means a turn 1 starting cooldown on a double normalized. I'd say this is actually quite important just so you actually have the choice whether you want to do it turn 1 or not. Sometimes it's not worth doing turn 1 if you're coming up against these tough teams. Sometimes, you've got Priya on those defense team, she can cleanse the normalized turn 1 herself, so sometimes it can be worth waiting until turn 2 and just getting the Adrenaline Rush that way, and then maybe getting commanded or something like that. But basically it's just having the choice. And again, LB3 higher stats. I know a lot of people are going to have this character LB3 just because of the event, so that isn't going to be too much of a problem. Now we'll move on to the passives, and you can see what I've gone for here in terms of the overall passive upgrades I've got. I've focused mainly on 2 passives, and that's Overwhelming Strength. So he gets 60% attack when rushing against enemies with bonus HP, and Rip Apart. So he gets a 100% chance to ignore all defense bonuses when rushing. So it's going to improve his Adrenaline Rushes against these teams that have bonus HP and defense bonuses. And this is big defense bonuses. Let's say someone's got 400% extra defense, got like Sebastian, Milton, and Lau Po. They just won't even have that defense bonus when he Adrenaline Rushes them, which is actually obviously really, really beneficial. And if we look at the upgrades that you can see, I've maxed them out. The ones that I haven't maxed out are Agility, because he doesn't get Agility bonuses on his Rush. He does on his signature move and his basic attacks. I'd only absolutely, max this out if you've got massive amounts of resources. The Maddoxes and Madeleines are short in supply, so not necessarily worth using them. If you wanted to get a little bit more out of this, going to 14, that'd be absolutely fine. You'd use 2 Maddoxes to do that because there's obviously 2 parts of Agility. Goaded Might is the other one that I haven't maxed out. It's the bonus when he is taunted. He does have the potential to get focus quite a lot, and this is going to boost his signature move, his rush, and his basic attacks. But there aren't that many characters on defense teams that actually have taunts at the moment, so this isn't that amazing. But in the future, potentially, there will be more characters that come out that have taunts, so that'll be actually quite good. Now, obviously, if you have Brutus in a team with the Scotsman, and the Scotsman is giving focus against certain characters, there's going to be massive downsides to this. For instance, Rosie, who gives the minus attack when focus goes onto a character, so there's something, there's a risk there. So you might want to plan your attacks out, you might want to plan your teams out based on obviously these sort of characters. But you can see basically what I've decided are the priorities. If you are flush on resources, it isn't necessarily a bad idea to fully max out this character, especially if you are utilizing him a lot. Now, when it comes to the combat mods, I think this is pretty straightforward for Brutus. He is just a flat attack character. His main thing is his Adrenaline Rush. It cannot crit, so just you want to boost this as high as possible. Attack set is the way to go. Go with your highest attack on attack mod. If you did get one from World Champions, where it's attack on attack Paragon mod, or you did get lucky from some of the recent RNG Paragon mods and got attack on attack, he is one of the few characters that is going to utilize it to a very high standard. 27% attack on the attack set bonus as well is going to be really nice for Brutus. You can see in his base stats on the left hand side as well, his attack stat is the highest. So if I just put a random attack mod in there, you're going to see this is going to get boosted quite heavily. Whereas if I put like a defense or HP mod, Obviously, that isn't the way to go for Brutus, but when you're boosting lower stats, it just doesn't get as much of a boost. The fact that he has really unbalanced stats towards attack, lean into it, obviously. So attack on attack is the way to go. Attack set, attack mod, you definitely can't go wrong with this choice. Now, in the top right-hand corner, I would go with attack versus on attack, but you've got to decide which ones are the ones to go for. Obviously, he gets a boost against fast characters because he is strong, so I wouldn't go with fast. He's going to get a massive boost there regardless. I would go with one of the other 3 traits, and you've got to decide what teams are you primarily using Brutus against. If you're using it against every single team in the game, you're maybe going to run into some issues, but you want to decide, because his kit kind of can lean one of 2 ways. His signature move pushes him more towards those tough defense teams, and then some of his passives pushes him more towards those PAM defense teams, because there's like bonus HP and defense bonuses in there, whereas on the normalize, it's only tough characters and the bonus HP from the passive. So he can go one of 2 ways there. Do you want to go with attack versus alert or attack versus tough? I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this character. I'm going to have to test it out. But I probably would go with attack versus alert for myself. You know, try and be absolutely nuclear against these bonus HP defense bonus teams like with Pam. You're getting a lot more alert and strong characters that are actually pretty good with Pam. So, you know, having Brutus being able to just completely blow up these teams really quickly could potentially be really good. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner on the resist mod, you primarily want to set up against, again, what team he's going to be coming up against. If it's against these tough defense teams, impair resist seems the pretty obvious one. But if he's coming up against these alert and strong teams, there's a bit more variance in what sort of resist he needs there. He could potentially need stun resist for those stun on defense weapons. He could potentially need exhaust resist because of Rosie, you know, these sort of characters, because you have got the AP gain in the rush. It is completely up to you where you want to go here. But because Rosie is on these teams as well, potentially, you might want to go with attack down resist. If he gets that minus 75% attack, even though he is getting big attack bonuses from potentially like Scotsman in the team, it is going to be problematic, guys. It's going to be massively problematic. So personally, against these PAM teams where probably going to have Rosie in them, I'm going to line it up so that he gets attack down resist. Okay, so now I'm getting the attack set bonuses. You can see I'm getting extra attack on top. We're nearly up to 50k attack without too much trouble at all. In the bottom left-hand corner, I'm not actually sure what to go with here. It could be worth going with attack while taunted. I'm not 100% certain if it stacks. It's actually quite hard to figure out if it stacks with the rest of his kit. I'll have to actually probably ask someone from Scopely if this actually will stack with his passives. I would assume so. And I'll try and update my top comment to say whether it stacks or not if I get any feedback from Scopely, because that definitely could be a way to go to just get as much attack versus as possible, because I believe in attack while taunted mods can go pretty high. I don't actually have one maxed out at the moment. If I go down to my gold mods, I probably have one in here, and we've got a 15, and that's 58%, so that does mean the golds can go to like 100% plus. Definitely potentially worth it, especially as he gets focus every single turn. And there is a little bit of taunt on some of these teams, so you could potentially set up the nuke. For instance, Rosie's weapon has taunt on it. So if you want to, you know, cheese it a little bit, you could attack her on purpose to get the taunt to then nuke the entire team. So that could actually be a pretty decent setup. Now, if this doesn't work, there isn't actually that many other choices you've got. You could potentially go with the classic for a damage dealer, you know, this mod here, but he doesn't do any crits on his rush. It's just going to be sig move and sig move and basic attacks this is going to affect. So you might want to maybe go with something else. Again, you could potentially go with like attack while impaired. This is sort of the same thing you're going to get while attack while taunted against those tough teams. This could be good. So even if he is impaired, he'll be able to just nuke with his signature move, nuke with his basic attack. So this does stack with the attack bonus he's going to get from Scotsman as well. So you've got a couple of options. You could potentially go with like a bleed mod. This not necessarily a terrible idea, or a burn mod. You know, if you've got a nice high stat burn mod, I think I've got like an 8%. I'm going to just use that for the time being. This is going to work with that signature move. This is going to work with the basic attacks. And because he's going to have very high attack, generally speaking, it's going to be a pretty decent burn mod here. But like I said, I think attack while taunted is the way to go if they stack. Just keep an eye on my top comment. I'll try and keep it updated. Now the last mod is going to be the wild card slot, and I think this is pretty obvious. Another attack versus seems to be the best way to go here, and because I'm setting him up against Pam teams, alert characters and strong characters, you know, just trying to get the extra attack versus these, you might want to swap your mods around a little bit, try and get the highest percentage mods in these slots as possible. And you can see once you've got 5 mods set up, you're going to get the set bonus up to 18%. You can see his attack gets pushed over 50k. And I don't even think I've got really that high an attack percentage mod on him. I think it's only like 18%. So it's nothing too crazy. If you've got that Paragon mod, it will go up even higher. Remember, mods affect base stats only. So it's only going to push up the base stats. That's why him having such high attack, he should get nice bonuses here. Okay, so for me, all locked in, this is how I'd use him if I was going to use him against Pam teams. However, if I was going to use him against those tough teams, I could potentially go with something like this. Attack versus tough and defense versus tough. I'm not 100% sure on the wildcard slot against those tough teams. Maybe another resist. You're finding that you're getting, you know, controlled in a particular way that you can actually get around. With a resist, I definitely slot it into the wildcard slot. Now we'll move on to Brutus's weapon, and I think using his base weapon is probably the way to go. It is actually a nice weapon. You just improve it 3 times, get it up to 55% attack, and then you're going to be able to utilize things like the last slot, improved magnified strikes. When he attacks, he gets 100% attack against characters that are stunned. I think this only works with his signature move and his basic attacks though. It will not improve the damage of his rush. So if you want to primarily use this guy as a rush nuker, you might want to use a 1535 weapon. I would not, however, swap this stat for 1535. You know, you might as well just craft another weapon with 50% attack and 1535 in his hands, because this is actually pretty decent if you do decide to go back to potentially using him to get better damage with his signature move, better damage with his basic attacks, rather than having to reset the weapon afterwards. So a weapon like this instead, just so you can get his attack stat a little bit higher, just to utilize that for his adrenaline rush, is the way to go if you want to make him that, like I say, adrenaline rush nuker. So when it comes to how I'd build Brutus in a team, I would say putting him in a team with the Scotsman seems obvious just because of some of the Scotsman's kit, where the Scotsman gives boosts to Brutus. Definitely worth it. You obviously get a bigger attack bonus from the Outlanders with Scotsman as the leader. I would definitely have him with a weapon with 1535 if you have it. I don't currently have a 1535 on my Scotsman, but you can see I'm still getting a really nice attack boost. If you can figure out a way to actually have a different leader in here, it's better to have 30 plus 1535 than just a flat 45%, only by a very small amount. But having Scotsman in the team somewhere is very important. Now, where we go with the other characters, I would say I probably need it 8%. I do want to utilize the command so that Brutus gets a second turn command rush. That's what I'm going to be going for here. Just try and get that nuke out as early as possible. So this is a bit of a throw together team that I put in here. I've got the 8%. We've got AP gain on Glenn. It's actually pretty decent. Now I'm getting a lot of trait damage towards me from the team I'm going to be attacking. That isn't always a bad thing, especially when you're dealing with teams that don't necessarily do many attacks. A lot of them are like effect based, so doing things like signature moves that don't do any damage. So it's not too much of a problem against the particular teams I'm going to be gearing up against. But generally speaking, you want to do some trait damage. We're going to make up with it, you know, with the attack versus mods. Okay, so this is the kind of team I've primarily geared my Brutus to come up against. And only Brutus. The rest of them aren't really geared towards this team, so it's only really going to be Brutus who's going to be getting any decent bonuses here. I'm going to stun this character up here. I do not want him doing his adrenaline rush too early in the fight. That would be nice. And we are going to normalize Nor. While some bonus HP is nice, which they have all got at the moment, tons of bonus HP, not so nice. Now I'm going to use my signature move against Rosie here. She has got a taunt on defense weapon, but this is kind of like a cheese. Brutus has the inbuilt boost when taunted, and again, if you do get the attack while taunted mod, if they stack, he's going to get extra boost there. And you can see he is taunted, but he gets focused every turn. We just got to basically resist at the next turn. We've got to make sure we resist that particular attack down. We're going to get the adrenaline rush here on the Scotsman, and then we're going to just hopefully do a nuke on the next turn. It doesn't really matter who I attack here. I can maybe get a stun in as a bonus. It is nice. And as long as I resist the attack down, we should be good. I did resist the attack down. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the AP on Brutus here. I'm going to command. And we're not going to get the defense down from the Scotsman, but this should be decent. I'm going to rush the central character. And I think this is probably generally the best character to rush, just based on how his kit works and how the waist knot works and stuff. So we'll rush the central character. And you can see quite heavy amounts of damage comes out. So it does need some tweaking. It does need some tweaking. Defense down will obviously be great here. I'm going to have to figure out some other ways to come up with teams here. You can see the sort of like beginnings of... That's just Brutus built for against this team. If I had the other characters in line 2 and I have a better setup, I probably wouldn't use Glenn. But if I have a slightly better setup, we can have some other characters come in. This could be pretty nasty nuke team. Brutus can get some big bonuses. And I could have potentially done more damage, like I say, if I had the attack while taunted mod. Like I say, just keep an eye on that top comment, guys. Keep an eye on that top comment. But you can see the kind of potential against these very, very defensive teams that we've got right now. So that was Brutus, my kind of starter guide ideas for this character. And I think he's got a lot of potential. It could be a lot of fun. You're going to have to find some decent mods. The attack down resist is going to be really important. I did find a gold one that was a max mod, so 75%. But against a character like Rosie, that gets pushed that back down to 35%. So maybe if a character comes out that has attack down cleanse or, you know, something like that in their kit, could work quite well with Brutus. If there's other characters out there that do the same sort of thing, we'll have to wait and see what comes out in the future. The combos with Brutus potential is good. Right now, in my mind, it's basically like the Scotsman plus Brutus. And there's like 3 more slots there to be filled out. There are some decent characters that you can put in the meantime. But I think there's like a primary, like heavy attack team there that has very good potential in the future. But let me know your kind of ideas on how you're going to build Brutus for like an attack team. What kind of teams you are building him against. Let me know in the comments down below, guys. That is the end of my video. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.